To simply watch this race is to not know this race. To see this country is to not know this country. You can marvel but not really understand their magnitude. And to watch them run is to know just a fraction of their story. Those feet pound the snow and ice with a purpose that only a few intimately understand. This race was created to save them. This land is here to frame them. And the canines known as sled dogs have their own place in history, in legend, and evolution. Perhaps there is no athlete who has transformed so much, aroused more emotion, nor created more controversy. Perhaps there's never been an athlete who has impacted or influenced more lives, canine or human. If they could only talk, you could ask them. If they were human, they may be the greatest labor force in the history of mankind. For work is a purpose, pay is food, and desire is endless. Again, watching them run is only a fraction of their story. To really know the sled dog, you have to ask why. Why do they run?
They have all this energy they were born with. These dogs are not couch potatoes. These dogs are dogs that are high, cranked, born to run energy dogs. And all they want you to do is show them which way.
Think about their ancestors who eat meat and berries, and they're running down caribou. The ones who can't catch a caribou on meat and berries are out of the gene pool.
So we have used dogs' natural instincts, and with decades and decades of breeding, we have empowered them with even more skills than what they were born with.
And when you have an 8-week-old golden retriever and you throw a ball, they go get it. And they bring it back and you're like, wow, they're meant to do that. Well, when you have a 8-10-week-old husky and you put a harness on them, they pull. You don't need to teach them to pull. They do it.
These dogs, not recognized as a pure breed, have genetics that have evolved for thousands of years. A little Siberian, Malamute, throw in a little pointer, Irish setter, some hound, and this melting pot is called the Alaskan Husky. And in the last 40 years, their evolution has hit sprint speeds.
The analogy I like to use is the Malamute that many people believe is an Iditarod dog compared to the true Iditarod dog. It's kind of like comparing a defensive tackle in the NFL with a wide receiver in the NFL. They are elite marathon athletes.
They're bred purely for function. They have to have tough feet. Their legs are a bit longer than they were in relation to their body. Their body's a bit longer, and that makes them anatomically more efficient in getting the maximum benefit out of a stride.
A well-trained, relaxed, non-excited Iditarod sled dog leading up to the race is going to have a resting heart rate somewhere between 40 and 50 beats per minute. Normal dog's heart rate is 120. That's one of the critical adaptations is that you got to move the blood around, and if you only need 40 or 50 beats per minute to do it at rest, then you've got all those others. They still have a maximum heart rate of up in the middle 200s that they can recruit to move blood around during exercise.
What can never be overlooked, diminished, or taken for granted is what has not evolved or changed over these thousands of years. The musher and his or her sled dog need to form a bond, a relationship made of titanium. It's crucial. It's a byproduct of time and hard work. It was the essence of a musher and his team centuries ago, pulling whales out of the ice or transporting food to the family. And it remains the same today. Without it, they won't run, let alone walk.
Dogs don't have a tomorrow. Dogs don't have a yesterday. Dogs are so in the moment that I need to interact with them accordingly. And one of the things I often tell people is, and I get the question asked, which is your favorite dog? And I tell everybody, I'm the guy that knows 500 dogs by name and 10 people. And of course, Eleanor or D2 or Dagger or Angel or, Caribou, dogs that have done exceptional things for you become very, very dear and very special. But I tell everybody, the one I'm interacting with at the time is my favorite. And I even draw that farther. The place I'm going to is my favorite place. The route that I'm on is my favorite route, and my next checkpoint is my most favorite checkpoint. So I can be just like my dogs, I can be in the moment. And that's a valuable lesson that the dogs have taught me over the years. Dogs don't hold grudges. Why not be the same? Why hold grudges? You know, dogs don't worry about the next bend in the trail, so I don't, you know. So there's a lot of lessons the dogs have taught me over the years and made me a better person, made me a happier person, made me a more confident person.
Jane Goodall and her apes and the horse whisperer and Caesar Milan. You know, people have ability to communicate with certain animals. And again, I don't believe it's cosmic. I think it's some kind of energy there. And mine's with dogs.
That story has been told over and over with me in my dogs, in their life cycles. The only thing, if I were to find a flaw with dogs, they don't live long enough.
Nowhere is a non-indigenous species more at home than in Alaska. These dogs helped tame this state, and in the Alaskan native culture, they were a hinge that kept people alive.
Whenever you see pictures or museum items or animals in any group with that group of people, that you're going to see a dog team. The dog team was there linked to surviving in our country.
You know, what a dog team has really brought to and through and meant to the Arctic. It hasn't just been a race. The race is kind of the celebration of that relationship. But what truthfully it has done is allowed people to feed their families. It's allowed people nomadically to follow the resources and be able to pick berries and follow the caribou herds and to travel from village to village and go to fish camp. It was part of the intricate subsistence lifestyle.
The sled dog is a part of this state's ancient and modern history. In 1917, Charles Sheldon lobbied to have this land set aside, later becoming Denali National Park and Preserve. In 1980, it was expanded to over 6 million acres.
These guys are not racing dogs, they're freight hauling dogs, and that's what we're breeding for. I think they love their jobs. We often joke that the dogs are the happiest government employees you'll ever meet, and I think that's pretty true. I mean, I think visitors see that, you know, they always wonder, how do we get the dogs to do this work? And it's not a matter of getting them to do this work. This is what they were born and bred and love to do.
These are the only working sled dogs in the National Park Service. There was no park before the sled dog. Harry Karstens used sled dogs as the first superintendent to establish park boundaries and to police against poaching. Today they still work, in the summer to educate and entertain tourists, in the winter to offer support in the park, a wilderness area where no machines or motors are allowed.
A big part of our mission is to preserve our cultural history. And when you look at the North and you look at Alaska, the dogs are a huge part of the history of this place. So when I look at what is their purpose, they are living history. They're keeping that tradition alive.
If the Alaskan tapestry of culture and history includes mushing and the sled dog, then races like the Iditarod offer the backdrop. Joe Reddington created the race to keep the tradition and the breed alive. The Iditarod Trail cuts through this culture, allowing a palpable glimpse at what these dogs meant in this wilderness. In a sense, when they cruise the Yukon River or reach the Bering Sea coast, the dog's genetics, existence, and purpose have all come home. And that brings us to the controversy. These dogs are not used for survival anymore. They're a link to history. Is it right to travel with dogs 1,000 miles across the Alaskan wilderness?
The average perception is that it's a shame that you make those dogs do that race. They just think about 1,000 miles, 40 below zero weather. Once they see the passion in a dog's eyes, once they see the enthusiasm that these dogs have, it's easy to understand that it would be a shame to not let them do the race.
One of the proudest and most satisfying moments of my life was watching this dog at 1.5 years old come into the village of Aniak during the Cusco 300 with blinders of pure enthusiasm. We've just gone 150 miles, and he was screaming his encouragement to don't stop here, we gotta go. This trip is magic, and that dog is magic, and it is one of the most memorable moments of my life.
It's created an animal that has a very strong genetic composition, and part of that is their love to run. I know it's probably a lot of people think of that as a cliche, love to run, but it's true. These dogs are motivated by being out there and being with their teammates and going down the trail. That's what they live for. That's their passion, performance.
From Kisilov, that is Bruce Litton at Iditarod at 39 amongst a pack.
Do they choose to go? A question often asked by opponents of this race, one that arouses unique responses from those who are dedicated to the lifestyle.
I think that premise is flawed at the very beginning of the statement because they do choose to do it. If they didn't choose, they wouldn't be going forward in harness. They could back out of that harness on their own, all they want. And you know, if a dog really doesn't want to go, I don't ask them to. I mean, I'm not interested in getting dogs to do things they're not interested in doing.
You stand out there at the restart and you watch the dogs banging in their harness, and you see the number of human beings it takes to keep the sled from rocketing down the trail. At that moment, it's hard to argue that these dogs don't want to go.
There's still a lot of people out there that don't believe in what we do, that think that we're making these dogs run 1,000 miles. That's absolutely not the case. You can't make a dog do these things. They have to want to.
It's not 2 weeks without adversity. And like any athlete, they get tired. And it's later in the race that they have to dig down deep, musher and dog.
The one time a year, the finish of the Iditarod, I can perfectly accept that my dogs and myself are going to be tired. But that's once a year, and that's where the price comes. All those years of training, all that effort, all the joy that they have, the 52 weeks of year come down to those last few miles. And I'd be lying if I said sometimes we have to really bite the bullet and go those last few miles. But that's what everybody that has any success in anything has in common. Nothing that you're proud of came for nothing.
So obviously, it's a marathon race. People get tired, animals can get tired. But, you know, we have teams out there that they're still jumping in harness when they leave the checkpoint 800 miles into it.
So yeah, you have to wake up your dogs, you know, and say, okay, Cha-Cha, we're gonna wake up now. We're gonna have a little fish soup and kibble for breakfast. Oh, I'm kind of in my tight little ball. It's 40 below. Don't bother me right now. Don't bother me right now. Okay, come on, get a little foot massage. I'm getting ready to go. I'm getting ready to go. Okay, eat, nibble a little bit, have a little snack. Oh, there's the harness. Get the harness on. Oh, I'm feeling a little better. Oh, boom. There, you ask them to finish. You're done for the day? No, I'm not done. I'm not done. Are you crazy? I don't want to stop.
I've seen 1,000 dogs do this. I've seen them do it over and over and over. You know, I've seen them do it from the time they were 2 years old till the time they're 10 years old, and then retire and teach other dogs to do it. And I've seen that life cycle happen over and over and over. So to me, it doesn't seem so astounding.
Any sort of conditioning program is required to be stressful. The body's not going to adapt to a new demand unless it's incapable of doing it when you first impose it.
And the personal journey. For many mushers, it's a life experience, adventure, and a test of toughness. But do the dogs feel pride, a sense of accomplishment? Is their existence benefiting from a physical and mental test?
You start to get the appreciation for a lot of these dogs that they are in fact capable of viewing this as, you know, their own individual accomplishment. And you know, a lot of people will argue that, well, dogs aren't really capable of that type of abstract thought. And I politely disagree with them. You know, you look at these dogs and they do view this as a challenge, their own personal challenge. that they want to meet, and they derive satisfaction from successfully completing it. And they're bummed out when they don't.
This way, come on, this way, hup, hup, hup. Such a good guys, huh? What are you sniffling there? Huh, guy? Look at the bumper. It's a good Merly girly. Look at that, boy.
This is one of the things that makes them the happiest, of course, if they can just be dogs. You know, they can interact in a pack, can roam around, they're free, they're totally on their own devices, and they follow me wherever I want to go. And that's, of course, not only making them happy, that's making me happy.
How you doing, old man, huh? Atta boys. Hup. Hup, hup, hup. Fun, fun, fun.
And I think the dogs can feel it. The dogs, when they have overcome, and I do it in a minutia, going through the swamps, going through the thickets, they overcome, and then at the end they feel the pride. When they come back, they say, man, we handled that swamp or that portage or that stream or that thicket of burned trees. They might have charry faces on their smiley furs, you know. But overcoming is where the pride is won. And I believe I can see it in the dogs' faces.
I mean, you see Salem, when I passed Swingley going down the Unacleet River into Unacleet in '06, this dog zeroed in on his face, ears back, loping down the trail, clearly competitive. We want to get in front of that team. That can come from nothing but satisfaction from a competitive event, because there was nothing in it for him besides the desire.
Is it safe? Life isn't safe for any dog living on any city block or in any neighborhood. But those dogs are not poked, prodded, tested, researched, or cared for like these. These dogs travel the trail, and every 20 to 90 miles are stopped and checked by an army of volunteer veterinarians. They have gone through a battery of tests before getting to the race. EKGs, their blood is tested, and they are microchipped. Each dog carries all that data down the trail.
This dog, not only does she have a name and a history and a pedigree and a resume, but she's also, every single one of our dogs is microchipped, and this microchip number follows them throughout their life. At the beginning of each race, every dog has to pass medical exams. Those medical exams include EKGs, so their hearts are tested to make sure that their hearts are healthy. Their bloods are tested to make sure they don't have high white blood cell counts or low red blood cell counts. And then all of this information is stored due to her microchip number. Now, over the years, Cha-Cha has run 8 Iditarods. All that information is there. We can look back and say, wow, Cha-Cha's hematocrit was, 43% when she started in 2003, and it's only, 41% in the 2008. What's different? And then the veterinarians will actually call you and say, okay, we've got an issue here. We have a 2% difference. Well, she was in season. She was in heat. And so it was obvious a biological issue where that never happened, years ago.
The trail. Once an unmarked snow-bogged mystery that made navigation a needed skill. Today it's almost a highway that is groomed and calculated with markers that glow and reflect. Booties are used to protect the dog's feet, and the mushers are as versed at dog care as they are in keeping warm.
I drove up from Anchorage today, and it wasn't a very safe trip driving a vehicle. I was scared most of the way. Running the Iditarod, I'm never scared for the dogs. We're in control. I have perfect control of the team. I have perfect control of the sled.
All the things that we've learned in the last 40 years of this race have been turned around and programmed into what is good for the dogs. That's been the ultimate, is what is good for the dogs. Harnesses are padded all the way back. That wasn't something that was earlier done. We used to, in the early days, put a booty on a foot that was already having an issue. Now we booty all dogs.
1973, the first Iditarod had one vet, Terry Atkins. Today there are over 40. And with the mushers, they become a team of trained eyes and decades of experience help monitor and focus on any ding in the team. And the old adage still holds true. You're only as fast as the slowest dog.
You know, I've worked very hard through my tenure as the chief veterinarian to promote a good working relationship between the mushers and the veterinarians, because knowledge is a valuable tool for anything that one endeavors to do.
The racing sled dog has to get along with people. As a veterinarian, I go out on Iditarod, and our goal is to examine every dog at every checkpoint. And so we look at feet, we look between the foot pads, we look in the mouth, we look at the gums, we look at the eyes, we look at the ears, we look the dog all over, and there are 20-some checkpoints along the trail.
So I think the evolution of the Iditarod has been through good leadership in the vet department, that they recognize there's no value in creating an adversarial relationship with the mushers, that the veterinarians have to have authority over the dogs, but they also recognize that the mushers are an excellent source of information about the very dogs that they have authority over.
It's the slowest dog that often gets left behind in one of the over 20 checkpoints. If they've lost their desire to go between checkpoints, they are carried in the sled by mushers. From the checkpoints, they are fed and cared for, and then flown back to Anchorage. There they wait for the rest of the team to arrive.
The three things that are really, really important for any performance dog: good genetics, ideal conditioning for the task at hand, and proper nutrition. And without any one of those three, a dog will never reach its maximum potential.
Nutrition. It's a virtual buffet on the trail. Traditional foods of fish and meat. But it's the kibble that has evolved and taken nutrition to a rare pinnacle. These dogs run up to 125 miles a day. They need 65 calories per mile, plus 2,000 extra for maintenance. That's over 10,000 calories every day.
Looking at an equivalent human and asking him to do the same tasks and get 10 to 12,000 calories down, he'd have to eat 50 Big Macs a day. Some people would like to try that, but I don't think very many could do that day in and day out.
In 1973, champion Dick Wilmarth fed beaver and dog foods called Old Roy, or Attaboy, and whatever else he could scavenge. And what used to take pounds and pounds to feed, they can now get that caloric load in with scoops.
Luckily, some of the best dog food companies in the world, obviously Eagle Pack, have really put in enough research over the years to determine what is appropriate for a sled dog athlete. And so we're feeding them well and above not only, the calories that they need, because that's important, everyone needs calories, but also because of, the minerals, the vitamins, the glucosamine, the vitamin E, the over-the-top part.
But some of the performance sled dog diets were the first ones to actually have those probiotics in the food. The same way with certain fats, the essential omega-3 fats that come from fish oils. We all know those are good things for dogs and cats and people. They too are heart healthy, they enhance the immune system, and they're ideal calorie sources as well. We learned about omega-3 fats with sled dogs. We learned how important they were to enhancing the immune system and providing adequate nutrition for those sled dogs. And that all trickled down to making a better pet food for the average house pet as well.
And I draw the analogy to, the Indy or the Daytona cars. They use special lubricants and special fuels. Only if you know how to make those kind of ingredients can you then tone it down and power the commuter car. Most of us drive commuter cars. Only a few of us drive those amped up turbocharged dog teams that require those special diets. But only if you know what really goes on metabolically can you then tone it down and make not only all the race dogs ultimately, but eventually all the dogs benefit from that,
And what's been learned here has helped all dogs with their nutrition. All those dog foods at the pet store have recipes now based on what's been learned on this trail. It's increased the quality of life for many dogs worldwide. Dan Hoke, a 6-time national champion bird dog trainer, knows firsthand.
Well, we used to just throw dog food at them and call it good. And if they needed more, they'd look like they were skinny, we give them more. But I think the science has really gotten to be a big deal now that they study it just like our nutrition, and they try to balance the dog's diet just like we would. Obviously calories are a big deal, but proteins are a huge deal. They got to have protein to build muscle, to grow hair, grow toenails. All of that is really important. They know that the dogs will live longer if they have better nutrition. They know they'll live longer if they can repair their body from activities like a hunting dog or a sled dog. They repair their bodies through protein, and the better protein you give them, the quicker they're going to repair themselves.
Science has been interested in the sled dog for decades. It has learned much about the athletic performance, physiology, and health in the canine and the human.
Well, I was outside. It's not my fault.
Mike Davis, along with others, are committed to learning about the sled dog. A professor at Oklahoma State University, he has a makeshift laboratory at four-time champion Martin Boozer's kennel. Here they may unlock mysteries that live deep in those ancient genetics.
They found something that only 2 people in the world knew. They were so giddy, they were so excited that they had to make a bunch of phone calls, you know. They said, if we were just 10 years younger, this could be an entire career. To me, it's like, phew, you know, it was the intracellular transport from some amino acids from one wall to the other. And I'm just a dog musher, but those researchers, they were so excited.
The dogs are healthier and safer because of this union. Gastric ulcers used to, in some cases, cause deaths in sled dogs. It's a problem that is virtually gone thanks to research and the mushers' willingness.
I guess they're sincere athletes. You know, they just like to run. And the people that are associated with the sport are sincere about wanting the best for the dogs. The sled dog community recognized years ago that there were problems that could be fixed. And rather than asking, you know, expecting somebody to go fix them, they got involved. And I asked the people at Iditarod to just simply find us some volunteers to let us scope their dogs. We had 8 out of the top 10 finishers volunteer their entire teams for the study. I mean, this is like conducting all of your research on the winners of the Breeders' Cup or the top Olympic athletic teams or whatever. That sort of thing hardly ever happens. In this sport, that's routine. That is the level of commitment that they have to solving the problems of their sport, is that they're willing to put up their own resources, their own time, their own athletes in order to fix it. That's not very common.
When the days of competition are over, many of the team members will stay in the kennel, elders of a sort, helping prepare the future. Others are adopted out. They make great pets. Their desire to run is still there, but they may also enjoy a little more time to relax.
It's a really, really great testament to these mushers and their care for their dogs. They find homes for these dogs, or they keep them as house pets. There's a famous picture of Susan Butcher, one of the most famous mushers of all times, with her #1 favorite, best lead dog, Granite. And there's a great interview of Susan with Granite on the sofa in the house, and that's where Granite lived after he became a retired sled dog.
But 90% of the time, you see them tottering around the yard here. We have the senior center. I bet I have 25 dogs here that are no longer in my racing program, that are simply enjoying life on the 17 acres that we have here.
There is a sense with some that this race, and races like it, even the lifestyle, is cruel to a dog, even after all that has been said in this program.
They really don't have a concept of all the things that go into making a great athlete and what these dogs are truly capable of and what motivates them. The Iditarod dog has shown to the rest of the world what a healthy dog is capable of, certainly a lot more than what the average dog does on a normal day-to-day basis.
I invite people over. You know, the only thing I can do is if you're open-minded enough to come to my dogs and see whether they're happy or not, whether they like to do what I'm doing with them or not. If you have that much gumption to actually expose yourself to the truth, I have never had a single person that walks away and say, this is not correct. We're sitting outside right now. There's 50 dogs sleeping on their houses. There's no sound. There's a squeaky wheel from an exercise wheel a bunch of puppies are running on. The reason they're quiet and calm is because they have their needs met. If they were neglected, if they were missing something, they'd be stir crazy. They'd be like some yapper dogs in apartments or in cities or on you know, in houses. If they're neglected, if they don't have what they really would like, they're always asking for attention. They're always barking. They're always needing something. Our dogs are pretty content.
Animal rights groups are so out to lunch. If they wanted to do something really kind, really good for dogs in general, they would really promote. They would like to see this at a really big level.
The invitation has been sent. These dogs are an integral part of Alaskan history. They conjure up images of a time when life was very different here, and living in this land was rough and ready. Today they are supercharged and genetically refined to run long and run fast. But under that fur is a heart that beats like no other, a desire to run that's unquenchable, and it's a genetic code that is uncracked and thousands of years old. Makes the question, why do they run, a lesson in history, genetics, and physiology, and in another sense, anyone who questions it, foolish.
You look at the team at the finish line, and the dogs are still barking and lunging in their harnesses and having, you know, acting as though they could continue going. And it's because they can. They have adapted into something where this is not that big of a deal for them anymore. And the only reason they're stopping in Nome is because they've run out of trail.
I talk about the love for my dogs and the infatuation I have with my animals. It's growing. They impress me even more. Maybe the slower, the older I get, the more they excite me because they do stuff that is just beyond. It's just unbelievable.
I will have to tell you that in my years of running Iditarod, I'm the weak link. I mean, as far as competition, we'll come up behind another team and my leaders will start barking and everyone will start pulling harder and they'll kind of look back at me like, come on, lady, you know, let's go. And sometimes I'm like, all right, ski pull a little bit harder. And so it has been proven to me that perhaps I'm the weak link and maybe someday I'll hold up my end of the bargain and we'll win.
Championships are wonderful, you know, race results are great, but ultimately, what am I leaving behind when I leave this earth? And hopefully it's a better quality of life for the dogs that I love.